Okay, it is June 8th, 2022, and my name is Alexandra Prince, and I'm here with Mary Ruth Foglino, who attended Camp St. Helene in Palenville in the early 1940s, and then your daughter attended in the early 1960s. And I can see that you have a letter with you.
No, that's me. I wrote this.
Oh, those are some notes.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start with the photograph that I'm looking at here. So it's a photograph of many, many children on a wagon being pulled by two black horses. So do you want to tell me a little bit about it?
The big event, it was billed, as I recall, as a hayride. I'm going to stop saying as I recall because obviously it was such a long time ago that we'll take, I'm doing my best as far as that is concerned. I don't see any hay, but it was, everybody climbed on board. It's a little bit of hay there. And I guess we just rode around the camp, and that was a big doing. Life was very simple at that camp, but it was wonderful, a far cry from the crowded city from which probably all of the children came for their vacation, and most of the children were from the shelter run by the Franciscan Missionaries of Mary Order of Nuns on 45th Street in Manhattan between 2nd and 3rd Avenue. These were kids who were there for abandonment, court cases, and they just stayed there for a while until they could be placed in something more permanent. It was called Divine Providence Shelter, and this was a thing that they came to. As the photograph will show, there were no uniforms. It was, you wore what you wore. The little girls seemed to all wear dresses. Nobody wore shorts or pants. The boys wore shorts. The activities were very simple. Everything was a very low budget. There was grass. There were a few swings. There was a push-it-yourself merry-go-round, which is still there.
Wow.
All these years later. Mm-hmm. Still works. We went over to it and pushed it a couple of weeks ago. And there was a lake that we swam in, but 20 years later, my daughter's age group did not because of the snapping turtles had taken over the lake. I guess you don't fight with a snapping turtle when you're little kids. They had a pool. The pool had been there when I was there, but it was for the little kids. It was like 3 feet deep or 2 feet deep or something, but it was cold water, all you needed. The meals were very, very simple. They were all prepared by 2 or 3 nuns in this little tiny kitchen. I can still see that kitchen. It had a big old stove and a little counter, and they just served everything out of big buckets full of whatever they made that day. And it was, served with ladles out of the white enamel buckets into you stood online and got your glop of stuff and just enjoyed every bit of it. And I don't remember any special treats except the applesauce, which...
Oh, yeah. Will you tell us again about the applesauce?
I guess somebody would give them a whole bunch of apples. I mean, maybe they were the ones they couldn't sell for whatever reason, and they just, smashed them down and made this wonderful applesauce, cooked it to pieces and strained out the skins or nuts or seeds or whatever, and then served it, and everybody loved the applesauce. That was a biggie. Another great big meal was hot dogs and baked beans. That was a treat. And I don't really remember much about the food, but it wasn't about the food. And obviously it wasn't about the activities, because the activities were church in the morning, It was a Catholic camp after all. And a little nun in the back playing the organ and us all singing hymns and flag raising, flag lowering at night with appropriate singing. You know, day is done, gone to taps, and I guess we sang the Star Spangled Banner or something in the morning. I can't be sure about that. It was huge. Everyone had to learn how to fold the flag properly and how to be sure it never touched the ground. And these things, I mean, you could kill a whole hour with flag raising in the morning, and now it's almost time to go on the swings, and then the next thing you know, it's lunch, and then you hike, which I thought was a long distance to this lake to swim. But when you have little 7-year-old legs, that was pretty far. When my daughter and I went 2 weeks ago, it's just down the road a little piece. It's very close. I think they couldn't have moved the lake, so it must be my perception of it. A lot of other things that I thought were so far, the big hikes they were right there. You know, they were no big deal. The place is as it was. It's been beautifully maintained. The buildings are have been some of them made into homes.
Right, where is it exactly? So it's in Palenville, or was in Palenville?
It is in Palenville. It's on Woodstock Avenue. There's a sort of a brick cement archway gate that goes into it. That's still there. The houses that we slept in were probably at one time private wood frame homes. We slept many to a room, but not in bunk beds. They were just sort of cots lined up. I mean, beds, but for the older girls, I would call older probably 14, 15, 16, and that was probably the maximum that they had there. There were 4 or 5 cabins in the woods that just had screens for where windows would be. They were not, I guess they were rainproof, but not in a really heavy rain. But then the little bitty girls, like maybe 2, 3, 4, they went to they were in Camp St. Rose, which was another house. And then the boys were just little boys, probably not more than 7 or 8 years old. They were in Camp St. Francis, which was another building. And those buildings were all there, but I think they've been refurbished as rentals. Mm-hmm. They're still part of the camp's property. When the camp closed, which I do not know what year that was, the long-term manager, handy person, caretaker, I guess is the term I'm looking for, of the camp, Mr. Kennedy, purchased somehow the property from the Diocese of New York. It was in the New York Archdiocese. His son now owns it. He has built a beautiful little cemetery for his dad and his mom. And it stands right in front of the thing that my daughter and I both had to find, which was the replica of the Lourdes shrine, which was natural rock formation, but they put the statue of the Bernadette of Lourdes and the Blessed Mother thing there. And that was a big hike too, but it's about less than a half a football field away, but it seemed like a lot at the time. What else did we do? We sang. There's a lot of singing going on, a lot of sitting around telling spooky stories. The counselors were probably all about 16, 17 years old, but we didn't know. We were little kids. That seemed like ancient.
Were the counselors the nuns, or they were different folks?
There were some nuns, and they were the in charge, basically, but they did have some girls, young women in the girls' camp. I think we had nuns in the house. The counselors did more of the activities. They may have been in one of the cabins
Okay.
separated. I don't think they were not in charge of us at night. I guess we did arts and crafts, but I don't remember probably other than braiding a lanyard out of some kind of plastic strips. I don't remember anything that we made. And I would have kept it forever, I'm sure, but so it couldn't have been too much. Another big memory that is one you'd rather forget, down the road from the camp, down through the archway, down the road a little bit, there's a bridge in Palenville which goes over, I guess, the lower part of Catskill. What is that waterway?
Yeah, the Catskill Creek.
Catskill Creek. And at that point, there's wide, flat rocks, and the water's very shallow. And it's mostly rocks unless there's been a storm, in which case the rocks would be submerged. So you can go walk out and walk on it and sit on it. When it was necessary to, there was no better term than de-lice, when you got head bugs. The treatment for, 50, 60 little girls was kerosene.
Oh my goodness.
So we would all walk down. That was a job you had as a counselor, which was you put kerosene on everybody's scalp down there and they rubbed it in good. It really smelled. I could still smell it. And then you wrapped it with a towel and waited for the kerosene to do its job. It probably worked better than the stuff you can buy in the drugstore now, but it probably wasn't so healthy.
How long did you keep it on?
Well, just, a couple of hours.
A couple hours. And
Yeah.
so
And then I don't remember how, I guess they washed it off in the stream or what, contaminated the water
Right.
supply all the way to New York City. Or maybe I guess I don't remember much about showers and bathing. I'm sure that they did that. I don't remember a big shower room. Maybe they depended on the lake to do that for you, but I don't remember taking cakes of soap to the lake either.
So you had these towels on your head, and you had your hair. It was soaked in a little bit of kerosene, or a lot of kerosene.
I think,
okay.
yeah.
And in the
And it
interim,
used to work. Then
Yeah.
they'd comb it through
okay,
and get rid of your...
and your head lice. In the meantime, were you all playing in the creek,
Yeah, it
or
was
just
nice. It was
going around with towels on your
Pick a
head?
beautiful day like
Yes.
today, and you could
Yes.
all sit around and it was a big adventure. So, but one you'd rather forget. Mostly the smell of the kerosene. There was an infirmary. There was a room in the house, probably, I think, next to the kitchen. It was probably about the size of the kitchen, which was pretty small. But kids didn't get sick. If they did, you just kind of ignored it. Like, I don't know. What can you do? You just pray it doesn't go through everybody. The big thing you went to the infirmary for is if you fell and you got a cut on your knee and you needed to get... Well, this is before antibiotics. So, and the Band-Aid isn't going to stay. I remember the expression that a scab is nature's Band-Aid and please don't pick at it. I think that's not true anymore. I think, you want to debride it of the scabs, but germs are growing under it. But the infirmary moved about 20 years later to its own little house. So that was over and back of the chapel, there, my daughter says. So, what else here? Most of the kids went for 2-week sessions, but my brother and I, because we had two of my father's sisters were in that order of nuns, we got to go for the whole summer.
And at that time, you were staying with your aunt.
No, I was staying at the camp.
But prior to that, you went to camp from your aunt's house in Twilight Park. Is that correct?
After we got big enough where it was felt in the family that my aunt, who was a single lady, could manage 2 little kids when she'd never been a mom for the whole summer, and that we could be of some use, helpful maybe in some way. Then we left the camp and we came to Twilight Park.
I see.
So that would have been 45. That was, I know I was there the year the war ended. So I guess I was down there till 44, and then I was up here 45 at Twilight Park. There was a lot of psyching you up for something. That took a lot of time. Pep talks and planning and making something be exciting. When you think about it, nothing was really, by today's camp standards and all the things that kids have and do. There were no, other than these 2 horses, which I don't know where they've borrowed them from, but we never saw a horse interestingly enough, never saw an animal, never saw a deer. Thank goodness, never saw a bear. But one of the big psych up things that happened once each 2-week session, so we got to see it a few times, was the campfire. It was a separate field, and they'd save all this stuff, and they'd have a big campfire. Probably have to very carefully pick the day so they didn't burn down the mountain. And during it, a counselor with a pretty voice would go up the mountain with a megaphone or something, and the Indian love song, which was really from one of the musicals that was a movie at that time, would be sung by somebody at the campfire, plus answered by somebody up in the mountaintop. That was thrilling, let me tell you. Worth waiting for, worth seeing many, many times. So, and then there were the ball games, a lot of foot races. Nothing too fancy. I don't remember sack races or just mostly ready, set, go races. The other activities that I remember happily, and it has stood me in good stead with my own kids when you didn't have any toys at hand, was using the stuff that's lying around to make a game. Like we were all budding architects. We would make endless floor plans with little stones. You have all your different rooms, and then you'd have, the kitchen would have piles of different, the acorns would be here, and the pine cones would be here, and the leaves and the pine needles, and the other more pine needles would be beds. Oh, it was just very, very intricate. You'd spend a long time doing that. So that was, they didn't need stuff. I don't remember jump rope. They probably didn't have anything that anybody could ever get hurt on. Maybe they had a jump rope, and I don't remember it. I can't imagine not having. How are you going to get hurt with that? Rainy days, I guess we all went in the dining hall, which is now a private home. That had screened walls, but now it's been, glassed in. Everybody was covered with mosquito bites, which they scratched when they weren't supposed to with their dirty little fingernails. So everybody was covered with infected mosquito bites. And another big event was going blueberry picking, which at the best, when you have a horde of kids like this, maybe you got like 10 edible ones, and that was such a treat. In this picture, my aunt's, with a hat on. Well, there, that one with the hat on. She had walked down from Haynes Falls, and she and her friend.
Wow.
Because they didn't keep a car up here. And there weren't things like taxis. So or maybe they chose to walk. Taxis were scarce. I know the postmaster was a taxi. He had a car that he used as a taxi sometimes, but that was pretty much it. And so they looked pretty good when they got down there. I mean, I didn't see what they looked like when they got back up again. It's
Oh my
5
goodness.
miles uphill
I didn't even think about
along the
the
road.
return trip.
Yeah. So my brother is that boy there. That's him. And I don't remember who I thought was me. That could be me there. But I'm not positive. The little girl with her hand in front of her face. That could have been me because I had fallen and chipped my front tooth.
Oh.
And when I was ice roller skating in Brooklyn on this, where we used to roller skate in the street, And I was very self-conscious about that.
Mm.
So I did a lot of walking around like this. But
And you said you knew about the camp because you had family members in the
two
order.
of they're not there, but two of the nuns were two of my father's sisters.
Mm-hmm.
One at this point was in the Philippines, and she was in the Japanese prison camps, but we didn't know whether she was, until after the war, whether she was okay or not.
Was she okay?
She was, 71 pounds, but she was okay. She came out of it fine when she started to eat again. And he had a brother that was in the camps too. He was a Jesuit priest, so. And they turned out to have been in the same camp, but not in the same section. So, the other one was in Providence, Rhode Island, and she did the magazines and stuff up there. She didn't put a date on this. It's my aunt's writing, but
What does it say on the back?
it just says Camp St. Helene under supervision of the Franciscan missionaries of Mary, Palenville, New York. Mary Lou McParland, Dorothy W., my aunt, visiting Mary, Ruth, and Jim. So I guess that's Mary Lou McParland. I look at them, they were probably only in their 50s or 60s, and I thought they were old ladies.
Oh yeah, they look quite young to me too. And so all the other kids here, they were under the care of the sisters?
I would say, you don't
At
really
the-
know.
at the
No one ever
shelter?
talked about
You
their
didn't talk about
backgrounds.
that.
No one
Okay.
ever said, I came from this horrible family, and
Right.
or my mom and dad gave me away. That was never anything anybody discussed.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that they came from there and later I volunteered there, then I know that that's where those kids were from and what they were doing there.
And was that still...
I don't know if that's still there. That was prime real estate. It was a 6-story office building right in the heart of Manhattan. They probably ripped it down and put a skyscraper or something.
Yeah, you said, so that was the Divine Providence Shelter at 45th and
Yes.
3rd Avenue? And
225 East 45th Street. Where'd that come from? I don't know if that's there or not.
wow, that's
And this
impressive.
And this is the information about the owner of the camp. Now, I don't know how private he is,
Okay.
but I bet a letterhead or a phone call saying with the Mountaintop Association, maybe he'll
We can go back.
give you the facts that you need to know, like what year did it begin and what year did it end.
Right. He certainly might have that information. Thank you. Yeah. And then when your daughter attended in the early 1960s, was it still
She stayed for 2 weeks.
She stayed for 2 weeks. Was it still the same group of campers, primarily from the shelter, or was it a different kind of group?
It was the same group.
Same group.
The whole complexion had changed in 20 years. It was just, you'll notice.
Right, in this photo, I'm seeing maybe like a couple people of color or like little black children.
Are you? I didn't even see them.
Yeah.
And then later,
A couple. Just a couple.
Later it was quite the opposite. Quite the opposite.
So in the 60s, you have a lot more
but
little...
just within that time, the city changed.
Right.
um, and then now it's changing back again, you know.
Mm-hmm.
People are getting kicked out of their homes or get gentrified out of their homes.
Right, it's a problem in so many places, rural and urban now.
Yeah.
And this man driving the wagon, I'm assuming he's
I don't know who that is.
He's the person who kept the horses there, I'm assuming.
I guess it would have been. I don't think it was. But isn't it interesting that he has a shirt and tie, with a shirt with a collar and a tie?
Looks quite nice, yeah.
And a hat.
Do you have a sense of where this photo was taken? Because it looks like it's high up above you. Maybe from a building?
I don't know how they took it, where they took it from, but there's another wagon back here.
Right, I see that.
And I would say it was the pathway through the camp. There's a U-shaped, or maybe not quite a U-shaped pathway. You go in on Woodstock and come out on another. No, you go in on Manorville maybe and come out on Woodstock.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. And I never know where I am, but I could find it if I had to.
I have a general sense, but of course I've never been back there because it's private property.
It's there's a way into the community there, where you go over the bridge and what's on the corner there, like right after the library or something in there before the light.
Oh right, yeah. There's that road that goes back in and over.
So there, and you just went straight there. You'd come to that archway and you'd go through there.
Oh, it used to be a bridge back there, or the same
the
bridge
bridge
that's
you
there.
cross over the Catskill Creek,
Okay.
and then you go back there.
I see.
When my daughter first moved up here, she lived in Palenville, and then she moved to wherever.
Did you learn any kind of skills at the camp, or was it not that kind of camp? Was it more, just kind of keeping the kids busy in a helpful way?
I was little, I don't remember how to scratch your mosquito bites. I mean, I don't know.
Did you have bug spray?
Huh?
Did you have bug spray?
Are you kidding?
Or anything that you would rub on to keep it off? Nothing?
Then?
Nothing?
Nothing.
Nothing. Okay.
Nothing.
So you're really...
I don't think they had the budget to do anything.
like that.
First of all, I mean, we were paying guests, and it was $7 a week.
Mm.
So given maybe with that to work, maybe they got the city to pay $7 a week. Even in 1940, that didn't go very far.
I see. Okay.
It's $1 a day. And, bug spray is $1 a day. I mean,
I was just curious what might have been used then.
I don't think anything.
To deter bugs, if anything, like you're saying.
Obviously, kerosene was the biggie, but that was after the fact. It wasn't preventative. Nothing like that. Never heard the word sunscreen mentioned in my whole life until it was time to put it on my kids. And even then, my kids say, "You never put it on us, Mom." Mm-hmm. The grandchildren, they don't even go to the store without it slathering all over them.
Right. Everything's very different now. Yeah.
It's just a whole new world.
Absolutely. And
I mean, things that little by little things became a necessity that had been a total luxury. Mm-hmm. And it just snuck into the lexicon here.
Right, that's a good way of putting it. So generally when you think back on Camp St. Helene...
It was wonderful.
Okay.
It was wonderful. I mean, best time ever. I mean, just not a care, Mm-hmm. Maybe older... I think even given the kids and their backgrounds, it was heaven. There's nothing you could have said that was bad about it. The food wasn't bad. It was better than not getting fed. Mm-hmm. The accommodations weren't great, but they weren't terrible when you're not used to even being sure where you're sleeping tonight. Mm. So it was really good.
And you were in a nice area.
The people were nice. Nobody yelled at you much. Mm-hmm. It was also an era where if people said, "Do this," you did it. Mm. You didn't argue. You didn't say, I don't want to because she doesn't have to. You just did it.
Okay. So people generally got along, or they did what they were told to do.
I don't remember anybody arguing with anybody or having but I'm naive too. You know? I miss a lot. And if it didn't happen to me, wouldn't have noticed it.
Well, that's wonderful that you had the opportunity to go back to the location of the camp.
Oh gosh, it was really great.
Yeah.
And this man, or I assume, he could not have done this alone, or with help, or with his dad before his dad passed. What a job they've done with this place. It is just maintained so beautifully. I mean, it was nothing ugly about it to start with, but a lot of work has been done to keep it up. And so
Wonderful. Well, I appreciate that you're sharing the contact information, and maybe I'll give him a call and we can go over it together. I certainly wouldn't go over without you. And before we wrap up our conversation, is there anything else you want to
I can't
share?
think of anything. If I do, I'll let you know.
You've shared so much, and I'm so thankful that...
I won't call you because I know your every minute is accounted for.
No, I hope you will call me. If you
I'll
happen
write you a note.
if you happen to
leisure.
You can call me anytime if you happen to think of anything for this exhibit or for anything else. Well, thank you again, Mary Ruth. I'm going to end the recording.
I don't remember them even having like an art show or anything like that.
Right, so,
Because
like you
that
said, it
would
was
have
very
taken
simple.
Paper and pencil and materials, and I don't think that was it. Nobody donated them that.
I think in the first time we talked about this, you said everything was very simple, but you were all happy as clams.
Yeah, that's true.
You weren't aware that
That's
it was
true.
simple
Did I mention
and meager.
That you got so desperate for like something sweet that you ate your toothpaste?
No.
Only we didn't have toothpaste. We had tooth powder.
No, I didn't.
Sprinkle some in your hand, and you wet your finger.
Just because you never got so that one
it was
time.
mint.
Right. Oh, just for a little bit of a treat. Okay, so when you got the applesauce with cinnamon, that's why it was so
big.
memorable.
That was. I still like. I bought some yesterday. As a matter of fact, made sure to get some with cinnamon.
Wow, terrific.
Make it? No, not me. I tried that once. It's too much like work.
I see. Okay. Well, thank you again.
Okay.